northern hemisphere and one in the southern. That was in Ecuador. That's where the equator goes through. And in China, I walked on the Great Wall. So that's pretty much it. Right now, I don't have any plans, vacation plans, so in the future. But in 2019, we did go to South Africa. Now, it's about a 12 to 13-hour plane ride from JFK to Johannesburg to Cape Town. Once we got out of the airport in Cape Town, the first thing that you notice is Shantytown. Now, I'm sure you probably have all heard of it. It is probably the most deplorable living conditions of any people that I've ever seen living. They have nothing but paper boxes. They're just stacked close one to another, right next to each other. The streets are nothing but dirt. There's no electricity. There's no running water. Now, what the government is trying to do to help these people, they are building a little concrete structures for them. Now, they probably only have, if they have 2 rooms inside, that's probably all they have. There's an open door and maybe an open window. And the people that are getting these, they have to go through a lottery. So there's probably people that are waiting 2, 3, 4 years on this lottery to get this new structure that they're building. And and this doesn't just go for a couple blocks. I mean, this area, this shantytown, it goes for miles. Yeah, it was very depressing to see that. So the first thing, before we even get to our hotel room, our tour guide is giving us the lowdown on the water situation in Cape Town. The reservoirs are very low. There's no water. So before we even get to the hotel, like I said, the guy is telling us what the situation is, what we have to do. Now, I usually don't talk about my bathroom habits, but we were told you pee in the toilet 2 or 3 times before you flush it. They took all the plugs out of the bathtubs, so you had to take a shower. And if you got a gallon of water, you were lucky. Hotels have no swimming pools. There is no such thing as a car wash, and absolutely no water in your lawn. If I got 2 ice cubes with my glass of soda, I was lucky. And you can get water in the restaurants, a glass of water, you have to ask for it, and then you probably only got a half a glass. So that's how severe the water situation was in Cape Town when we were there. So the next thing, or the first little excursion that we took, is Table Rock, or Table Mountain. Now this is a mountain that for some reason there's no top on it. Nobody knows what happened to the top. It's kind of shaved off, and it's solid rock. Now you can trek up there on a trail. However, the bad news is it starts out at about 45 degrees angle. By the time you get to the top, it's probably 90 degrees. So it might take you a day and a half. We took the cable car up. Once you get to the top, it's very rocky. There's absolutely no vegetation up there, but there's lots of trails that you can run around on. And you get a great view of the city of Cape Town. It's built right up to the base of the mountain and the Atlantic Ocean. The next little adventure that we took, I'm sorry that I didn't have enough maps for everybody to put on the tables, but we did go down to the Cape of Good Hope. Now it's way, way down on the southern part of the country. There's really nothing there. And when I see nothing, I mean the government doesn't want any commercial buildings, any residential, no industrial. So there isn't even a gift shop there. All there is a big sign that says Cape of Good Hope. There's an observation deck that you can go up to the top, get a great view of the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful spot on planet Earth. Now, they tell me that there's a ton of shipwrecks at the bottom of the oceans there because the currents are so strong. And back in the day, when the clipper ships were there and what else they ever had in the 1800s, the currents just pulled those ships right into the rocks and they just went down to the bottom of the ocean. So like I said, they're telling me that there's tons and tons of shipwrecks down there. The next little thing that the guy's telling us we're going to do, we're going to go see the penguins. And I thought, penguins? We're not even close to Antarctica. Well, there's a colony of penguins in South Africa, and they're there all year round. Doesn't matter if it's 90 degrees outside, they're there. And this is just, they're a very small variety. They're they're not very big. They're all black and white, just like other penguins. They're not as big as the empire penguins that are in Antarctica. And they're not fenced in, so they can go wherever they want. So we're watching, and we are on a very slow catwalk. And of course, they're jumping off the rocks, going into the water, swimming in the water, coming out, jumping onto the beach, and then they're running under the catwalk where we're standing on, because there's a little shade there for them. And then after they get tired of that, they go running back out into the water. So we were not, of course, you're not allowed to feed them, and you're certainly not allowed to touch them, but we were very, very close to them, that we could have, just stuck our hand on it and touched them. And, because we're tourists, they just have no fear of human beings. I mean, they could care less if we were there. The next little thing that I did, and my traveling partner, I guess I have a question for you people. Has any of you ever petted a cheetah? Didn't think so. Well, I have a picture here, pass it around. We went to the Cheetah Outreach. And what this organization does, the one that we were at is an educational facility. These cheetahs are ambassadors for education, and they're imprinted. That means these guys are raised by human beings. They don't know what it is to hunt and survive on their own because, like I said, they're raised when they're kittens to adults. So when we were there, we were asked, do you want to go into the pen and pet them? I said, sure. They're in an area that's probably fenced in. It's probably about 10, maybe 20 acres, because you got to give these guys room to run. There were 2 males and 1 female, and they all got Zulu names, which I cannot pronounce. So the handler is telling me, now when you pet him, use a very, very flat hand. You don't want to tickle his tummy or anything, you just want to pet him. Now, this guy was purring so loud when I got into his little stall. It was unreal. I didn't know cheetahs purr, but they do. They don't roar like a lion, or they don't, growl. They make a chirping sound. So I just assumed because his fur would be kind of wiry, kind of coarse. I have a cat, and her fur is just silky soft. This guy's fur was a little coarse, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Of course, as soon as I got in there and was petting him, he was just purring like crazy. I could have stepped on his tail, and he probably wouldn't have bit me. So then she asked me, well, do you want to pet the female? I said, sure. She was on a platform, sitting out in the sun, kind of high up. So I had to kind of reach up high to, to pet her. She was laying down, I was petting her, and all of a sudden she just popped right up. And I thought, oh my God, what did I do wrong? So the handler said, no, she probably just heard a sound she had never heard before, or she was smelling something different. So she finally laid back down, and I just continued to pet her. Now, the good news is, like I said, these animals are imprinted, and I have different feelings about this because, like I said, it is a wild animal, and they should be out in the wild. Well, the good news is this facility, Cheetah Outreach, they have another facility someplace off-site where the mother cheetahs raise their kittens all by themselves. They have absolutely no contact with human beings. And once they know that they can hunt on their own and survive, they are released out into the wild, into protected areas. So that's the good news. So that was very interesting. I mean, I really like that area. The first park that we went to, which wasn't too far outside of Cape Town, it was a private preserve, and if I remember the date correctly, it was a little cloudy. There was a little bit of a heavy mist, maybe in the rain. It wasn't really raining, but there was a heavy mist. And we piled onto the jeeps. Now these jeeps are open air, so in other words, there's nine tourists and a ranger. And the jeeps, the seats are staggered, so there's this first, second, and third. So when you're sitting in these, you're not blocking anybody's view. So you're going to be able to see all the animals without blocking anybody's view. Now this first park was very, very lush and green. Everything was green in it. It was thick. So we get on the jeeps. It's a little bit misty and cloudy, and we all had rain ponchos on. And we go around the corner, and right there are two rhinos, just right on the road, just standing right there. And and the guy's driving very slow because, like I said, we're trying to pick out all the animals. But because it was so lush, you would maybe spot a giraffe, and then it would disappear just like that because it would go into the brush. Or we would see a zebra. Same thing. You would see them for maybe a second or two, and off they would run. Well, we knew where there was a herd of elephants around because we found their droppings in the road, and the Dungus beagles were having a field day. So sure enough, we go around the corner, and there's about 7 or 8 elephants, just meandering, through the brush, through the trees and everything. One of the other things that I think there were some warthogs that we saw in this park. And this is the first time we encountered a lion. Now, the ranger spotted him first, and he told us. He pulls the jeep off to the side of the road because he knew that lion was going to come right past us. Turns off the engine and says, "Do not stand up. Do not make a move. Don't make a sound because that lion is going to walk right past us." Sure enough, within 5, I'm cowering on the floorboards. Within 5 feet, this lion walked right past our Jeep, and as he walked past, he is just glaring at us like, which one should I eat first? I mean, I was a little bit scared. So finally that lion, he walks around the corner past a bunch of rocks and kind of disappears. We just let out a sigh of relief because we couldn't believe what we had just happened. And then the ranger was telling us a lion probably has to eat every 7 to 8 hours. So we're kind of hoping he ate an hour ago. We went back to our hotel, and we're going to be on our way going to Kruger National Park. But before we go, tour guide is telling us that Kruger National Park is a malaria area. Well, what does that mean? Well, you gotta get the malaria pills. You gotta have a prescription. None of us have a doctor in South Africa. So I don't know what happened, but the malaria gods must have been smiling on us, because the next day, the health department lifted that restriction. You didn't have to have a prescription to get the pills. So there's 20 of us running to the pharmacy to get these pills, because it was recommended that we get them, because you never know. I don't know if I read someplace or if they told us, if you get malaria and you don't know it, it can be up to 2 years before you actually have the symptoms of what's going on. So they did recommend getting the pills. So that's what we did. So now we're on our way to Kruger National Park, but on the way, we stopped at a city called Durban. It's on the Indian Ocean side of the country. And it was disappointing because it was so foggy that morning. You couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. And the tour guide is saying, yes, the Indian Ocean is right there, but we couldn't see it. So we pulled into this little park where there's a little sandy beach and everything. Everybody gets out. We take off our shoes and our socks, and we walk into the Indian Ocean. Again, it was disappointing because, like I said, it was just so foggy that day that we couldn't see anything. So before we get to Kruger National Park, we stopped at a little country. Now, if you look on the map, inside of South Africa is a little country called Swaziland. Very tiny. It's probably not any bigger than the state of Rhode Island, but it's a country all by itself, and it's a kingdom. In other words, they have a king. The guy's got 30 wives and 90 children. He's been busy. His 30 wives each have their own house. We went past a couple of them. They're very, very nice. His palace is immaculate. The yards are very well kept. And I think we ate lunch in Swaziland. And another thing that kind of blew me away about this little tiny kingdom is the United States has an embassy in Swaziland. It's not a consulate, it is an embassy. And our tour guide was telling us, well, we're gonna drive past the United States Embassy. We were not allowed to take a picture or a video of the U.S. Embassy. And I thought, now that's really strange. But yeah, when we went past, there's 2 Marines standing out in front gate, standing at attention. If you were a Marine attachment assigned to Swaziland, you've got a cushion job, because there's nothing happening in Swaziland. There is one thing, there is no crime in this little country. Because if you get caught killing somebody or you get caught stealing, you are executed. So, no crime. So, we finally get to Kruger National Park. Now, I want to explain a little bit about the terrain first, because it was very different than it was in that first park that we went through. That was very lush, everything was very green. Kruger National Park was just the opposite. Very brown, very scrub brushy, lots of what I could describe as scrub brush. Lots of trees and everything. Lots of, I don't know what to say. There's lots of rock formations and stuff like that, so that the lions and the leopards can climb on. So I'm just gonna try and go through some of the animals that we saw in Kruger National Park. There were impalas, gazelles, oryx, kudos, springbok, we saw Cape buffalo, water buffalo, wildebeest, rhinos, elephants, hippos, ostrich, hyenas, leopard, crocodiles, lions, giraffes, zebras. And there's probably 10 other animals that I can't remember what we all saw. So the impalas and the gazelles and those type of animals, I classify them as either deer or in the antelope fields. There were some of these guys that had horns that were very shaped, just very straight and arching backwards. Then there were some that had horns that spiraled backwards. There were some that didn't have any. In fact, the little springbok, I think they're called springbok. It's a little deer-type animal that's not any higher than my waist, and they got the right name because those little legs had springs in them. They could just jump right up those rocks and just get up to the top, and when they run, they were kind of like jumping. And we didn't see too many of those, but there were some. The elephants, of course, they always travel in a group. The cutest one that we saw was probably a mother elephant and her baby. They were taking a mud bath together. We kept our distance because we know that could be dangerous. When we saw the water buffaloes, they have really massive horns, but they just looked at us and stared at us like we were some kind of foreigner or something. Whenever we saw a rhino, they would be maybe one or two together, not often, but they were very laid back. In fact, all the animals in the park, they're not stressed. I mean, because it's a large area, and we would just pull the Jeep over to the side of the road. He would turn off the engine, and we would just watch the animals to see what they would do. The giraffes would cross the road, and then right behind the giraffes would be a herd of zebras, and it's kind of like whenever we saw the giraffes, we would always see a herd of zebras right close behind them, and maybe they traveled together. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing that's probably what they did. When we went to a pond to see the hippos, it was a pretty large pond. I'm guessing that there were maybe 6 to 8 hippos in there. They would go under the water. They would come up. Maybe we were counting the same hippo twice. I'm not real sure. But anyway, did you know that more people in Africa get killed by a hippo than any other wild animal? And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I didn't think those guys could run that fast. But they say, don't get in between a hippo and his pond. And they say their jaws are so strong that they can snap a crocodile in half. And when you think about it, you see this, you very rarely see a crocodile attacking a hippo. They might try to attack the baby hippo, but I'm sure the mother will take care of that situation. So we're on this very low bridge. There's a pond there, and there's two hippos swimming around in there. So we're all looking over there, looking at the hippos, not paying attention to what's on this side. Now I'm sitting on the outside seat on this Jeep, and I swear to God, if I'd have stepped out, I'd have stepped right on a crocodile, because he was laying right there, right blended into the mud and the dirt. He didn't move, and had the ranger said something, I would have never noticed him. He was laying right there by the side of the road. Most of the babies that are born in the park are usually in the spring of the year. Of course, we're there in December, so we didn't see a whole lot of baby animals. There was, like I said, the baby elephant. We did go to a drainage ditch where a hyena had a nest, and there was about maybe 4 or 5 little pups in there. They were kind of cute, I'll have to admit it. but I'm not much of a hyena fan because that's the type of animal that steals food from other animals. You'll see that where lions, they make a kill and the hyenas are all around there trying to steal them, steal from them. Speaking of leopards, the tour guide told us, now don't be disappointed if you don't see a leopard because they are elusive and they are solitary. So okay, we're not counting on that. Well, sure enough, the first day, I'll admit he was probably as far away as that cabinet over there. You could definitely see the spots on him. He was definitely a leopard. So that was a plus. Sure enough, the next day, we had to get up really early in the morning, like 4 a.m. Well, if you want to see the animals while they're active, that's the time to do it. So we got on the jeeps around 5:30 in the morning, and off we go. Don't we spot another leopard? Kind of off in the distance again, and the ranger's telling us, you see those impala way over there? Well, she's going to go around the backside and make her attack. He said, well, how do you know it's a female? Well, we can tell by the size of the head. Good for you guys, that's all I can say. So, there's lots of, there's other rangers in the park with other tourists. They talk to each other via radio back and forth. So we got a message to get over to this one spot because there's some lions over there. So sure enough, we goes over there. This is an asphalt road. It's very narrow. The roads are very narrow in the park. Lots of them are dirt roads, but this happened to be an asphalt one. And right dead center in the middle of the road are two male lions, sleeping. Now there was two trees. It was like a canopy, one tree on this side, one on this side, and it was providing shade for them. So they were laying there taking a nap. Well, it's about 6:30 in the morning maybe, and we're not really, we're all there, and there was other cars parked along the sides of the road. There was probably 10, 15 cars. And by the way, you are not allowed to get out of your car if you're running around in the park. If you get caught, you're kicked out. So and if you had a sunroof, that was ideal because there people are, taking pictures of these two lions. They're just napping. They're right in the middle of the road. Nobody can get around them. So finally, and we're parked on the side, and the ranger said, well, take a look 6 feet behind us because laying in the ditch is a dead Cape buffalo. Now, I didn't want to see the insides of this animal ripped out. Thank God it was, on the other side, we didn't see that, but it was dead. And he said, well, they probably killed it about 5:30 this morning. They ate their fill, and now they're taking their nap. That's just like your house cat. I mean, my cat, when she's done eating, she takes a nap. Finally, one of the lions gets up, comes around our Jeep, and goes into the brush. Now, the brush is all brown. It's very thick, and I tried to follow him as far as I could into the brush where he went. And, of course, the ranger is telling us those two lions probably made that kill about 5:30 in the morning, and it's laying in the ditch there, and they're going to protect that. They are not going to let anybody else get that. Even if you don't see him, they're there. They're close by that dead animal. Now, another strange thing about it was most of the time, it's the female lions that do the hunting. But these were two male lions. So, I don't know whatever, I know the other one must have just stayed there and laid there and rested, for the rest of the morning. I don't know. Anyway, Kruger National Park is the size of the state of Connecticut. And I'm assuming that I'm sure it's fenced in because it's, for one thing, you want to keep the animals inside, and number two, you want to keep the poachers out. Now, a park that size, you cannot patrol every square inch. Poaching is a big issue in Africa. People will do it because the lure of big money is so great. You can get paid up to $100,000 if you poach a rhino just to get his horn. So there was an incident at one of the other national parks. It wasn't Kruger. Poachers got in. And the next morning, the only thing the rangers found were their boots, their guns, an awful, awful lot of blood, and a pride of happy-looking lions. Now, I shouldn't say this, but they probably got what they deserved. Yeah, and like I said, poaching, they're doing everything they can to prevent it, because if they don't do something, 2-3 generations from now, we're not going to see some of these animals. You know, what do you do? So a lot of them now, they have drones out in the parks. They have patrols with, you know, the rangers have patrols, but yeah, they can't stop it completely. So it is inside the park at a gift shop where I bought this zebra skin. Now, standing there in the shop, and I'm just kind of looking at them, and of course, you know, when you're a group of other people from all over the country, there were 2 gals on the bus from Montana. And, you know, like I said, we get to know each other. And I'm standing there looking at them, and they said, yeah, you know, if you don't buy that and you get back to Wisconsin, you're gonna be disappointed that you didn't do that. I said, yeah, you're probably right. So, okay, there were just 2 of them on the rack. Picked it out, goes up to the counter, whips out my charge card. They wrapped this up. I don't know how they did it. It was more like wrapped up in a ball, wrapped it in bubble wrap, wrapped that up in packaging tape. So it was maybe a ball by the time it was so big. It's amazing how they did that. And I was about to leave, and she said, no, you got to fill this paperwork out. I said, paperwork? So on this piece of paper, it basically says, this animal is a legal kill. I did not kill this. It is illegal. It's from the head veterinarian in Kruger National Park that says this animal legal kill. Now, did it get attacked by a lion? Was it sickly that they had to put it down? I don't know. It doesn't say. But I needed this piece of paper when I got through the Port Authority in New York City. You go through customs. Now, when I know about customs, they can take anything away from you that they want, whether it's whatever it is, they can do that. So, and I didn't realize this until 2 days later when I'm on I thought, oh my God, I got to go through customs with this. What am I going to do? Yeah. A little bit hair raising there for a couple hours. So after we left Kruger National Park, we were there, like I said, for 2 days in the park. After we left, well, one thing I have to tell you, they had a major fire in the park. I think probably maybe in 2012, 2013, I'm not sure. But they said they had to open up the gates to let all the animals run out into Mozambique. So this had to be a major, major fire if they had to do that. After we left there, we traveled to probably, I want to talk to you a little about Victoria Falls. We could have taken a side trip to Victoria Falls. It's on the border of Zimbabwe and Zambia. So they wanted an additional $1,000 to do that. I thought, and after I found out what was going on in Zimbabwe, I'm glad we didn't. We had a gal on the tour. I think she was either a journalist or a freelance writer from New York. Now, our tour guide is telling us when you get to Zimbabwe, to get to Victoria Falls, you have to give them your passport and they want to know what your occupation is. Now, since this gal was a freelance writer, our tour guide told her, you've got to lie about your occupation. Because if they find out you're a journalist or a writer, they're probably going to arrest you because they're going to think you're going to write bad things about their country. So once I heard, because Zimbabwe is ruled by a military junta, so you don't want to mess around too much with this. So I'm glad we didn't do that. Victoria Falls. Besides, I really don't think they were there that long to actually visit the falls. So our next little excursion took us to probably to the western part of the country, to Zulu country. Now, when we got there, there's a little village. The Zulu people live in houses now. They don't live in grass huts anymore. But there was a little demonstration area where there were some grass huts. The young men were giving us a demonstration about their spears and their shields. Their shields are very, very decorative. They're made with animal skins. And during the 1800s, the Zulu people were fighting the British people, the British Army, because South America was colonized by European countries. So there was a lot of conflict between Great Britain and the Zulu nation. So they gave us a little demonstration of how that was. The Zulu women, they run around the streets, the roads, whatever, looking for scrap wire. And they make these little baskets. And of course they also make bigger ones that are bigger than this. But this is made from scrap wire that the Zulu women picked up on the road. Trying to think let's see what we did. Okay, after that we took one whole day just running around the country, and I'm thinking to myself as we're looking at the countryside and everything, I see no other wild animals. I see nothing. So finally I asked our tour guide, I said, there's 375,000 impala running around in Kruger National Park. We go outside the park, and we see zero. So I asked him, I said, how come? Why is this? He said, well, the ranchers, the cattlemen, they are so protective of their grasslands for their cattle and their sheep. They see a wild animal, they shoot it. So you see none of this. You just don't see any of them. So as we're getting closer and closer, we're coming back into the center part of the country, and we're going to be going close to Johannesburg. Well, we're not there yet, but there's a lot of mining in South Africa. So back in the day, probably in the 1800s or whatever, the colonial people, the British, whatever, told the people, you guys can have everything above the ground. We'll take everything below the ground. They didn't know there was diamonds and gold down there. They thought they were getting a good deal. Well, De Beers is probably the biggest diamond operation in the world, and they have a lot of diamond mines in South Africa. So of course I'm making a joke. I'm saying, well, are we going to tour a diamond mine, and are they going to give out free samples? No, because these mines can go 2 miles below the surface. It's dark, it's hot, and it's dirty. So no, we're not going to tour a diamond mine. They also mine a lot of coal and a lot of gold. Now, unfortunately, once once these veins run out and the dirt and the rocks and everything are piled up all over, they don't reclaim the land like they should. And I think again, they're probably maybe trying to address that situation. As we get closer and closer to Johannesburg, they call it Joburg for short. Joburg, I don't know why they do that, but they do. But we went to Soweto. Now, Soweto is where Nelson Mandela grew up and where he lived. And we toured his house. It's very small, it's very simple. The poor guy spent 30 years in prison for what he believed in. Now, I don't know too much about apartheid. It wasn't very pleasant. There were some people did get killed, but Nelson Mandela said something that was so profound that is just totally unheard of. He told his people, I don't want you to forget what the white man has done to you. I don't want you to forget. But I do want you to forgive him. Because if you don't forgive him, we will be a nation just like our neighbor to the north. And I'm sure he was talking about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is run by a military junta. They had a civil war there. The death was unimaginable. Now, when he told his people that, I want you to forgive them, that had to be a hard pill to swallow. But they did it, and they worked out their differences. And today, South America is probably the most progressive country on the continent of Africa because they work together. So that was a good thing. We did spend our last night in Johannesburg. It did rain that night. Now this is December. This is supposed to be the rainy season, but it really didn't rain a whole lot. I mean, we didn't see a lot. We did go. You wouldn't think South Africa was a third world nation. We went to a mall in Johannesburg, and I'm telling you, yeah, there were the places that I shop at. Cartier, Louis Vuitton, Prada. I mean, there was nothing in that mall that I could afford. It was that expensive. I mean, you wouldn't think that in a third world country. And the place was packed. It was just packed with people. We ate lunch that night at Trump Restaurant. Now, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. But this place served exotic meats. You could get Cape buffalo, ostrich, crocodile. They probably had wild boar. Conservative me stuck with fish. They have a fish there it's called hake or hack. It's spelled H-A-K-E. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. When it's cooked, the flesh is it's Snow White. It's very, very good. I've only seen it once at Festival Foods in Green Bay, and it's about $17 a pound. So they don't have it very often. But I probably should have tried the wild boar because I'm sure that would have probably tasted kind of like pork, I would guess. Let's see, what else did we do there? One of the things that actually the most popular food in South Africa is Magnum ice cream bars. You could get these things any place. I mean, they cost $7 a rand. Now, South African rand is the equivalent of 7 of them is the equivalent to $1 US. So you could buy a Magnum ice cream bar for 7 rand or $1. If you bought one, you got a second one free. So it was like 50 cents, and I'm paying for these ice cream bars, and I was eating these things all the time. 50 cents? Good deal. So, one once we were leaving from Johannesburg to get back to the States, and once we had about a 4-hour wait for a plane that they dumped us off at the airport. We had about a 4-hour wait. So if you bought something, you could get the tax reimbursed. So since I bought this, and it's kind of expensive, they call it a VAT tax, a value-added tax. And why not? Why not do it? Because I must have paid about, I'm guessing between $160 and $200 just for the tax, because the tax is about 19%. I mean, we think 5.5% is bad. They got 19%. So I waited in line about an hour and a half just to get through the line because people were, changing. And you have to keep your receipts so that you get this reversed. So once I got up there, they asked you, how do you want it? I said, well, I want it in U.S. dollars. And they give you this little tax refund thing. It's like a MasterCard. It's probably a debit card. When I got back to the States, I probably had to wait, I'm guessing 4, 5, maybe 6 months before they actually sent me the card. But you could go online and just keep track of where your refund was coming. So yeah, I got reimbursed for the tax that I paid on that skin there. So once we come back, and we left Johannesburg pretty early in the morning. We got back into New York City about 10 o'clock. No, it was literally 6 in the morning, I think. So I've got this. It's all wrapped up. It's underneath my arm. I got my little piece of paperwork here that says this is a legal kill. And I goes up to the counter where the guy is. Give him my passport, and he says, where are you coming? I mean, he was just rude. Where are you coming from? I said, South Africa. And he stamps my passport, and I get the heck out of there because I didn't want him to ask if I had skin, because they could have taken this away from me. So I left. So I got through customs without any problem. So that's pretty much it. I have some things up here on the table that you can take a look at. I have, like I said, a picture of Table Rock. I have some little things, Cape Point, South Africa, where the two oceans meet. Cape of Good Hope. Here's the flag of South Africa. Here's the flag of Swaziland. Here's a copy of my passport with the South African stamp. I have a picture of that lion that we met at that first park that came right past our Jeep. I think this picture of this elephant is taken in Kruger National Park. One thing about elephants, if they can't reach the branch or the leaves that they want to eat on a tree, they'll just knock it over. So there are tons and tons of trees in Kruger National Park that are knocked over. We have, I think this is a picture of a warthog. I'm guessing that's also in Kruger National Park just by the way the terrain looks. And then there's one of these strange looking deer antelope with the twisted horns. We did stop, one of the first resorts that we stopped at, they had a little zoo there. And they had one very, very rare cat, and it's called a serval. This animal has probably some of the prettiest ears I've ever seen on a cat. They're on the back side of their ear. It's black, white, and brown. And there's just it's not a very good picture. It's just a little side picture of it that you can see the tip of his ear. So that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions?
How long were you gone? I mean, what was the duration of the trip?
We were about 8 days all. You have to allow a day for traveling, because I think we left JFK at 10 in the morning, which means we probably flew overnight, and we got to Cape Town in the early morning or late morning in Cape Town. So it was a 12, 13-hour flight out of JFK.
You said you were there in December, so what was the December weather like there then?
Well, December, okay, it's the rainy season. So that, the rainy season, tourists don't like to travel in the rainy season, but it didn't rain. So, and because it's so-called rainy season, you get a better rate for your tours and your trips, because people normally don't want to go, when it rains. Like I did say, it did rain one night in Johannesburg, and that was it. That was it. And then the one little misty weather that we had at that first park that we went to, that was it. That was it.
Temperature-wise.
90 degrees. Like I said, when we went to see the penguins, it was sunny that day because I got sunburned. And like they're there all year round. They don't care if it's 90 degrees out or not. Yeah. But yeah, the weather is, and I think it's pretty much mild that way all year round. Even if it's winter, it was still 80, 90 degrees. Yeah. Did what? Bugs?
Mosquitoes.
Well, speaking of mosquitoes, like I said, Kruger National Park is a malaria area, so you're thinking there's got to be mosquitoes there. Didn't see a one. Didn't see a one. And I asked the ranger at Kruger, are there any snakes in this park? I don't like snakes. He said, well, I've never seen any, but I'm assuming that there are some. I'm assuming that there are. Yeah.
How do you communicate with people out there?
Well, they were colonized by the Europeans, mostly the British, so they speak English. Now, there's Afrikaans, which is the African. They have a dialect. It's like English. You have to listen very carefully to what they're saying, and you yourself have to speak a little bit slower so that they can understand you. But yeah, it's English-speaking country.
Didn't you need mosquito netting over your bed?
No.
Do they have
No.
screens on the windows?
No.
No, and you didn't need.
Not in Cape Town or not in Johannesburg. No, not even that one little resort that we stayed at in the jungle where I'm talking about that serval. That was technically out in a jungle area, and you would think, no mosquitoes there either. Anything else?
Do you have a business card?
Do I what?
Do you have a business card?
A business card.
A card. I want to talk to you about it. Right.
Okay. Thanks for having me.